relationship on the lender side, relationship with the brokers, and relationships with your investors are everything.
Yeah.
And it's really a microcosm of what EO has done for me. It's the connectivity point that I think I mentioned about burning bridges, that establishing those relationships and keeping those intact. And it's real work, right?
It is.
It's not just fun and games going to the dinners, but it's part of establishing a rapport and being authentic. And I think that's been helpful for us.
EO Dallas, welcome to Connecting the Journey. Very excited to have you here today. Very excited to spend some time with our guest here, who is an alumni. And I just want to remind you of the point of the show. As entrepreneurs, we're always looking forward. We're always looking for that next biggest, greatest thing, but very seldom will we take the time to look back and see where we came from. Look at those pivotal moments. Look at those God-wink moments throughout our journey, so we can really move forward with full gratitude. So that's why I'm here with y'all today. Excited to introduce our guest, Eric Connor, from EO back in late 90s, right?
Yes,
97,
yes.
I think you said your term was.
I'm not sure I was in the original group, but I knew some YPO members. So I understood the concept, and I can't pinpoint a person who made the actual introduction, but back in the days with Milledge Hart, and so just was part of one of those forum groups in 96, 97, and enjoyed the experience and the forum piece especially. So
yeah, forum's key, man. And I think you're still in kind of some forum with some of your old guys. Those are lifelong friends. Those are lifelong relationships, regardless in EO, not in EO, that you're going to keep with you.
It's been a foundational part of my life. We, I guess, formally left the EO system in 02, 03, but kept the concepts and the framework and the gestalt, which has been critical to kind of creating a safe forum environment. And obviously that personal board of directors piece has been a fundamental kind of help in my journey along the entrepreneurial path. So
it's huge, man. We're actually here in Jeff Crilly's office. Is one of our EO members, and is in my forum. And so the relationships you build are for life. You got an EO, you said around 97, but you started your business in 1995. Is that correct?
I did. So the name of the company is TriPro Management. It's a real estate play. So we buy existing 1980s classic garden style properties. So we own. We manage and ultimately dispose or sell those assets. I have one primary business partner that I've been with longer than I've been married. So
wow.
He and I went to high school together. And so he and I started the company in 95. I actually went out first and started it, and he was still at Gulf State Utilities. And 2 years later, after we kind of proved up the concept, he followed me. So that's the 95 is when we actually started the company, started buying 8 units and 16, then 32 and 200 and 300 and 400 units. So kind of gradually scaled it up.
Wow. So you grew up in Galveston, Texas, and your partner grew up in Port Neches, you said?
No, he was actually in Galveston.
He was
also.
in
We
Galveston
went to the same high school together.
Okay.
We have this argument about who carried who in the accounting class. And I think I'm going to give that nod to him because he's more the CPA type than me. But so we both grew up in Galveston. My family's been there since 1880, believe it or not.
Oh, wow.
So a long time, generations.
Yeah.
BOI, born on Ireland, and his family is the same way. And then ultimately we went off to respective colleges, but kind of kept in touch. And the genesis of our kind of partnership was that we used to do lawn maintenance, construction, help pay our way through college during the summer years in college. And so in Galveston, fertile ground because of the corrosive nature of the salt water. So lots of painting opportunities, lots of lawn. Point is we could work together.
Yeah. And y'all did property management from the outside, right? I mean, y'all managed a lot of properties.
Right. We a lot of Houston doctors owned rental places there. So we'd be the caretaker for those summers. And so that was how we kind of started thinking about the rental play and the real estate play. And then ultimately I was at, long story short, at business school, and we ended up buying a rental property, Gabe, that we still own today, believe it or not.
Really?
And
First one,
and we acquired at the time. So this is post RTC. So this is early 90s, but after all the RTC savings and loans shakeup, and not really driven by that, but they had a lot of silent auctions for residential homes. That was the method used for bidding at the time.
Yep.
And I was in business school, and there's this thing called the Monte Carlo simulation, which is a probabilistic analysis, and basically throw a bunch of factors and variables in and spits out a bid in this case, which was $16,920. So I told my business partner, that's what we're going to bid, went in a sealed envelope, and we won the house. I don't know if I overpaid or not, but we still own it today.
Well, there you go. I think it's paid off. You own it, you own it now for
refinanced
sure.
it multiple times.
There
I'm
you go.
happy to say. And it's down in his neck of the woods. So I'm here in Dallas. He's down in the Port Neches area, which apparently you're familiar with.
Grew up in Port Arthur. Know about Port Neches. Arch rivals from TJ Yellow Jackets,
Right,
which
I
is
bet.
not TJ anymore, but the Indians are still there. They went to state a couple of years ago.
Emanate from that area.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. You mentioned you just breezed over where you went to school. You went to Wharton School of Business?
I'm an Aggie undergrad engineer.
Okay.
And then my first job out of college, I was 21. I worked in Egypt.
Wow. Okay.
For Schlumberger. Schlumberger is the big wireline guys that kind of help you decide what's at the bottom of the well after you finish drilling it. They throw a tool down there and kind of tell you where to perforate and where to drill for oil. And I was in the engineering background, so Schlumberger was looking for engineers. I was civil, not petroleum, but they felt like there was some broad nature, and civil's a fairly broad discipline. So anyway, I went to Egypt.
First job out of college, you're in Egypt?
21 years old. I am in the final interview with Schlumberger, and they asked me what hemisphere I want to work in. I didn't even know, I was a 21-year-old kid. Didn't know how to answer the question. So I think I said north, and I'm in Galveston, 2 months before, and they call you and said, all right, Eric, you're going to be assigned to our Middle East division, and the center of that is in Dubai. Now, Dubai was not the Dubai that you know now. I mean, it still was a pro-Western kind of place, but so I flew, said goodbye to my parents, said goodbye to my girlfriend at the time, and flew to Dubai. And then from there, you had your 2-day training, and then they shifted you to various regions in the Middle East. And my region was in the Sahara Desert in Egypt. And so 5.5 hours south of Cairo on the Gulf of Suez, where the Gulf of Suez met the Red Sea. So that was my stomping ground.
First job. What was that like? What was that like? I mean, that's a culture shock on many levels.
Well, remember, pre-internet, pre-email, pre-voicemail, pre-banking over the online, none of that. So it was a massive culture shock. And for me, that was the first time I'd been overseas. Actually, the second time I'd been to Europe, but I mean, not to the Middle East. And so they had, in my class, 17 engineers from 16 different countries. There's one other guy from America. Me and him were the only North Americans. And then so obviously great indoctrination to multiple cultures, multiple philosophies. And then you went off to your base camp, and the oil environment, as you might imagine, is a international rich, especially if you're in the Middle East. And so you would meet people from all over the world. And the system was you had 2 months on, working kind of constantly, and then 2 weeks off, and you go explore the world and come back. And so that was the genesis of that. Yes, it was really interesting.
What'd that do to your mindset? So I was fortunate enough to be able to travel when I graduated high school. I went to Europe for 3 months and completely changed my perspective. What'd that do to your mindset, being that's your first job out of college, and I mean, you're in the Middle East. I mean, what'd that do to your mindset and your perspective on life?
Certainly went through my homesick stage and missing my friends. Then, as you might imagine, as you kind of sunk into that opportunity, just the richness of sitting at the dinner table, and you had a Scottish guy here, and then you had a Pakistani and an Australian, and just, it was a target-rich environment for somebody who, I'm a fairly curious individual.
Sure.
So for somebody to kind of the opportunity to engage in those conversations took out that provincial Galveston Texan piece of me that's still there, obviously, but really exposed me to the different cultures. And then obviously the work was hard because when you are on the job, the whole entire rig shut down at $250,000 an hour, whatever it was. So they're waiting on you.
Oh, you're doing your work. They're not pumping
because
oil.
you've got the tool in the hole. So everybody's standing around waiting on Schlumberger. And I think my record was 47 hours in a row that I was up. I was up, not me, just any engineer in that position. So it was if you didn't have the work ethic or you didn't have the stamina, it was a tough environment. But I enjoyed it. So
that's super. That's a really cool experience to be fresh out of college.
Yes, it was something. Yeah. Not the path I was thinking about.
Yeah. How long were you there?
2 years.
Okay.
And frankly, Gabe, they recognized and suggested, and I agreed that I was a pretty crappy engineer. So that time I'd kind of gone through it, and the churn rate was 33% a year at Schlumberger because you're in this harsh environment. Yeah. And I actually, the camp I was at was the second hardest rated outside the Aboriginal desert of Australia. So it was a really tough environment because of the remote nature. So I came back and I reconnected with some of my A&M friends, and I ultimately felt like I was more operationally want to be in the business side. So I went to work for McKinsey & Company, the big management consulting guys, for 2 years before business school. Then I went to Wharton, as we talked about, for 2 years, and then came back to McKinsey for 3 years. Okay. And it was in that latter half that David, my business partner, and I started formulating the idea of me going off and starting this business called TriPro.
And where'd that idea come from? I mean, I know you talked about y'all did some management in Galveston, but where'd the beginning of that idea come from?
Well, at Genesis, we bought that first home I told you about, the silent auction, and one became 30 over the next 3 years. So 30 rental homes we had, and they were in disparate geographies. I mean, they were in our backyards, North Texas for me, Gulf Coast for David. And we kind of said, this is an interesting concept. We like it, but 30 retail homes paying retail rates doesn't make any sense. And single family is wealth producing, but not income producing.
Right.
So it was more kind of long-term piece of it. And you had minor cash flow. So he and I started talking about, well, we need to switch to the multifamily thing. And I was kind of, after 5 years at McKinsey, it was time for me to look at some other opportunities. And, McKinsey's a fabulous place to be, but if you're an entrepreneur and you're kind of a little more operationally oriented, that's going to get to you after a while. So that itch was starting to grab me, and I said, David, let me take X amount of time, see what I can do, and then obviously started pivoting the strategy away from the single family to the larger, well, smaller at the time, but the multifamily concept, manager on site, the economics of scale and scope makes sense for you. Yeah. So that's how we started doing that. And then we bought 2 or 3 complexes, and then David joined me, and we forged that partnership then and have been together ever since.
That's awesome. What was that experience like with your wife leaving a solid job at McKinsey and then jumping off into entrepreneurship? Always, my story is I've never had a real job. I've always been an entrepreneur, so I haven't had that experience. So what was that like? I
looked at some of your previous podcasts about that spouse and that dynamic, and we talked about it last night. We were at with some friends about what's it like to be the spouse of the entrepreneur. And my wife also has an MBA, so highly accomplished. She was at the brand management, so from an income perspective, we were able to kind of make it work. And so she was highly supportive. And I think she predicted at the time, based upon my business partner and I, that we would last 3 years.
Okay, because we're very solid. Very 3 years.
Real belief, right?
Yeah, right.
Very different personalities we are, but I think neither one of us wanted to clone.
Yeah. Oh, that's what makes it work.
Right. So there was a relatively minimal power play because we each had our strengths and knew what those were, and those could come together. So for that first time period where we're going through, she was the breadwinner and emotional support. And then we started having our first kids. We have 3 kids now, so back in the mid-90s. So it was all hands on deck. Yeah. Oddly, I was the more flexible schedule guy. So I would be the ones taking them to the doctor's appointments and those kinds of things because I had the flexibility. She had the more corporate job. And so those were challenging times as we've all been through. And, I kind of say to my forum group, if you hadn't struggled to make payroll, you're not a true entrepreneur. And we struggled many a time to make that, and you're the last one to get paid.
Yep, exactly. How old are the kids now?
29-year-old in Brooklyn, a 27-year-old in Denver, and a 22-year-old in LA.
Wow.
So we've got them all over. We have had Connors in every time zone the past 5 years. So it's interesting, but it's great places to visit.
Yeah. LA definitely a good place to visit. And same with New York. My president has a daughter that's in New York, and they just went through the whole housing thing, and that's ridiculous. Right. It's crazy. So very thankful for Texas. Great place to visit, but want to be back.
A little more affordable. That's right.
For sure. So you started the company in 95 and you joined EO in 97. How did that, the company is still fairly young. What kind of impact did EO have for you early on in your business career?
Oh, I think it was a very critical stage. And we talked about this, but essentially being around other owners, really other like mentalities is really what's saying. Now, again, he was in Beaumont, so while we could talk, at that time, you may recall, it was 30 cents a minute. So you didn't have the technology to kind of have those free-flowing conversations. So while he was a support system, he wasn't
Isn't that
physically
crazy
there.
to think that
Yeah.
phone calls were 30 cents a minute?
So we got to be very efficient.
Yeah, very efficient.
That's right. And so I was looking for, and there was nobody next to me in my office, and he wasn't physically there. And so I was looking for a support group. And I talked to several other of my friends who were in YPO, and we all both understand the nuances and the differences. So we all wanted the entrepreneurial side.
Yeah.
And so I heard about that and immediately gravitated toward the forum concept because of the board of directors, the personal board of advisors piece of it. And even the simplest questions. I got a maintenance man that's doing drugs. How do I think about firing him? How's the old EEOQ, whatever those things are?
Yeah.
How do you work that out? And so then from those to how do I structure the deal? So both the business parts were very important for me. And at that time, they were all roughly my age. And so then you start having young kids. And I don't know if you've found this in your forum, but the 80% business, 20% personal starts to shift to 50-50 to maybe the other way. And now we're kind of coming back as the kids are out of college. So the EO experience has mirrored my kind of life cycle also, and with those lifelong friends.
Yeah, we talked about the alumni program that we're starting, and that's similar on that path, right? I mean, EO is important for you at a certain junction in your life, and maybe things happen, whatever, and there's an opportunity to bring it back. And it's interesting that their forum has flowed that same way. We had a good conversation in our forum last week, and we have a couple of younger members, and it's really good that we have kind of a mix of, we really kind of have, we got somebody that's about to turn 60, and we have somebody as young as 36. And so we've got a lot of things in between, and it's fun because some of those younger guys are about to have kids, and it's going to be fun to see them go through that journey. As
we've continued to develop our forum, we've tried to bring in younger members also for exactly the reasons you mentioned. That we need the energy. B, we need the startup mentality reinforced to us. I always, we recruit those individuals. I say, look at forum as an IRA. I mean, it's a 5 to 10 year kind of life cycle. You're not making daily or monthly or quarterly decisions, because some meetings you feel like you're giving, some you feel like you're taking, and that's got to balance out over time.
Never leave regretting it, though. Maybe in the middle of a crazy week, and it's, maybe you want to take a miss, but I've never been to a forum meeting that I didn't regret, that I regretted spending the time. You always
got to get there, right?
Yeah, you always get something out of it, right? And get settled in, and it's a lot of time it's the things that you maybe wouldn't think you would get out of, right? There's a presentation that, somebody maybe they wasn't fully prepared, or they just, we pulled it out of a hat, and it ended up being one of the most valuable things. So forum's huge, man. So tell me a little bit about the journey of the business, right? You started in 95, you started, buying these properties. Where's it at now? What state of the business?
We are on, actually, so I'll tell you about the arc, and kind of we'll tie into where we are now. So the proposition back then was, and so we focused on existing houses. So we're not developers. So it was 1980s workforce housing. When I say workforce, I just mean $900 rents, not $1,900.
Yeah.
So there's gradations in real estate. We don't need to
get
into that piece of it. But at the time in the mid 90s, that level of product was mom and pop owned, not institutionally oriented, kind of use third-party management. So you'd have out-of-state syndicates who would buy and hire a third-party management company, which is a fine model, but it created a lot of fragmentation. And we felt like if we could provide professional management services to that particular niche, that made sense for us. And then again, reference the lack of technology comment I made before. If you're going to be buying kind of existing product that's a little more workforce oriented, that's harder, our philosophy was that we're going to buy within an hour and a half of our respective doors. So for me, that meant North Texas. For David, that meant Gulf Coast. And we've never deviated from that philosophy. Because we felt like, if I had to meet the code inspector or there was a fire, I just need to be hands-on, because we didn't have any designs about being a REIT or a large institutional. We wanted to be, we're at 5,000 units at our peak, but which is still kind of a smaller company in our field.
Yeah.
But so we, as I said, we moved from the single family homes to smaller complexes to kind of what I'll call larger 200, 250 units. And 78 deals later, we're still doing roughly the same thing. So we've went through the arc over the 90s and the 2000s, and today's world, Gabe, is different. Not
vastly.
It's so in 2021 in our space in DFW, and I hate to say I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but I'm a big believer of the DFW miracle, the North Texas kind of migration pattern,
Absolutely.
the economic activity that's here. So we went a little more aggressive into that in 15, 16 area. And, we were up 16 or 17 assets at one time. And we are now down to 3. And that is somewhat life cycle intentional. We hold deals 3 to 5 years. And so we're rolling those through. And we typically replace them with new acquisitions. Well, we didn't feel like our market thesis held up. Prices had run up, good as a seller, bad as a buyer.
Yep.
And so we started to re-examine whether or not this made sense for us. A little bit of stage of life, a little bit of life cycle of real estate. And so we have kind of gradually sold. We've been net sellers and not really purchasing much, and just kind of at this point waiting to see if we want to make another run at it.
Makes a ton of sense. I mean, prices are high here, but also everywhere. And it's hard to go back to that original thesis of being an hour and a half from your doors, right? You got to be outside of DFW, and now DFW has grown. Heck, you got to be buying in Oklahoma,
right? Pretty much, it's the same territory. And Gabe, you'll appreciate this. What we've done is, in that kind of entrepreneurial spirit, is we had several highly competent, highly tenured, highly loyal back office employees that had supported our operations throughout the years, and obviously, when you're down to 3 assets, it's tough covering the fixed costs of those employees. Well, we wanted to utilize those resources, A, because they've been so good to us, and B, if we wanted to come back into the game.
You need to have
so we forged together a back office, kind of a same company, but just a different set of suite of services. So we now perform third-party back office accounting and administrative services for small businesses. And so we utilize their skill set. And so we now have a hefty and healthy third-party platform to help small businesses grow.
Well, that's cool. So any small business or in the
so thank you for bringing that up. No, we're industry agnostic, because ultimately if you're paying an invoice, it doesn't matter what you're painting. And so we've utilized their skill sets. And here's the value-added proposition for this piece of the business, is that there are, and we've targeted the small businessman. Think the craftsman, the chef, the interior designer, the landscaper, the IT guy who's really good at their trade, and either doesn't want to deal with the back office or is not capable of dealing with the back office. So what do? They call a flexible QuickBooks Pro expert. They're fabulous. That's great, and they provide the services they need. Where we feel like we can compete, and our value proposition is we're multi-fluent. We not only speak accounting, but we speak business, we speak entrepreneurship, and we have found that that's a value delivery system when they start talking to David and I versus our competitors. So,
man, that's a great point, because there's so many. Today is probably the easiest time in history to start a business, right? But the back office is the same, right? And if it's not your unique ability, if you're that visionary guy or that craftsman that's good at using your hands, you're probably not good at accounting and bookkeeping, right? So that's a great service,
right?
And when did y'all start that?
Oh, the past 3 years. So 2 years in earnest, and now have a different client base, and so we're continuing to utilize that service. And so whether we start to forge ahead back on the traditional real estate side, or we'll always continue to support those third-party clients. That's not going away, but whether we want to continue that as our growth pattern. So
that's awesome. And you get to utilize those long-term employees and give them place.
They're fabulous.
I bet you they love it.
They finish our sentences, and frankly, we're successful because of them.
And they get to work with different clients. They get to see, different aspects of the business, probably bring some good energy to the office.
Right. And some kind of good internal growth.
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. That's really cool. So David, let me ask you this. What was, over your journey since 95, like what's the darkest time in your entrepreneur journey? If you look back at that, like what was the most challenging time? Maybe sometime when you were going to give up.
Two facets. The early days, those were tough. As I said, I kind of went without a salary, and that was financially tough, especially when we had our third kid. And so there were trade-offs that had to be made. And we were in the private school system at the time, and that
you're in Dallas,
right? We were outside the Park Cities. We now live in the Park Cities, so we did what a lot of families do, moved in there, and that's been a fabulous experience. But those early days were tough, trying to corral investors, trying to find the properties, frankly, cement our reputation, because there were other people out there that were more experienced, and getting the brokers to award you the deal was always tougher. So like that first part, post 9/11 was tough in our industry also for all the obvious reasons. And then I really think after the 08-09 period, the great financial crisis, We were fortunate. I did not have a crystal ball, but what did a lot of those operators in at that time, not because their operations necessarily suffered. They had the same kind of occupancy, but because the cap rates, NOIs, the value of your property dropped 20 to 30%.
Yeah.
And the only way you survived was you had pending loan maturities, because obviously we have debt on our properties. We were fortunate that we didn't have any maturities come and due for the next 3 to 5 years. So we were able to weather that storm. But boy, it was an intense period. And I think another challenging stage was we had utilized an individual to help us raise equity in the early days, who was well based in Dallas, and he was a terrific mentor for both David and I. And then obviously as my peer group started to age from McKinsey or from Wharton or from Park City's friends, their wealth grew and they became kind of investors of ours. Matter of fact, we've had some investors that have been in 45 deals.
Wow.
So a good, solid set. I am blessed with an amazing limited partnership base, all of which I know personally.
Yeah.
And so that piece of the challenge has kind of been overcome now that they believe in us, and hopefully we've delivered compelling returns.
Yeah, they'll be there when round 2 or 3 happens, when if y'all decide to jump back in.
Right. Right.
I think that's a huge part of your business, is that access to capital, but also relationships. You built that over the years. That's huge.
Relationship on the lender side, relationship with the brokers, and relationships with your investors are everything.
Yeah.
And it's really a microcosm of what EO has done for me, is the connectivity point.
Right.
And I think I mentioned about burning bridges, that establishing those relationships and keeping those intact. And it's real work, right?
It is.
It's not just fun and games, going to the dinners, but it's part of establishing a rapport and being authentic. And I think that's been helpful for us.
Yeah, I've got a guy in our forum, Phil Young. You may actually
I know Phil. I don't know
Phil.
the name. I know him personally.
He is really good at just staying connected. He's been in EO forever, but he has a system around it, right? And it is work. It's a full-time work to stay connected with people, not just when you need something, because your network is unbelievably valuable,
right.
and being there to give and receive, that the network is key. And then that was one of the things that I really sat back at the alumni event and just sat and watched these people. Some people hadn't seen each other in 20 years, right? And just to see how the connection instantly, they never skipped a beat.
I can affirm that.
Yeah.
I haven't been at that event in maybe not 20 years, but in a good long time.
Yeah.
And you did such an amazing job, and bless you for kind of spearheading that, because it's long overdue and it's going to pay dividends.
I think it would be interesting we're going to get back involved, but just to see the connections that came out of that one event, right? Because imagine something, you needed something from somebody, or you had something, just that connection. Now you reconnect with those folks. It'd be interesting to see how that's gonna happen. But it's real work, people networking and keeping those relationships up. It's a challenge, especially with everything else you got going on.
Right. Right.
So what was some of your favorite moments in EO? Now, you mentioned form, but what was some of your favorite memories?
I think the retreats stand out for me. So we go on those annual retreats, and we were pretty diligent about that as a forum, and still have been. And
what was y'all's? Did y'all have for us? Our first retreat was in Little Rock, Arkansas, but after that, it was nowhere in the U.S.
Wow!
We all tried to go where's someone we're going to go we wouldn't normally go. But what kind of place did you?
Well, I'm not sure we hit quite that exotic of a stage. We did a couple in Mexico, but for the most part, they've been in Marble Falls and around the 3-hour radius in the area here. We did one in Nashville, so we try and do a Friday noon to Sunday at noon. So typically that limits a little bit of the travel outside the state, but it's an opportunity for 48 hours to really sink in and digest. We alternate who's leading the retreats, and then we alternate sometimes how much business versus personal versus fun.
Yeah.
And I think those are just great times to frankly sit around the campfire and kind of dive in a little bit deeper way. And I've always come out of those recommitted to the experience. And so the retreat part and the exercises, and I've been moderator several times, so I appreciate the leadership that takes, and really kind of finding those exercises that unlock what makes Gabe Gabe, and for me to find out that piece of it. And so that's why those are so enjoyable for me. I really like the connections, the warmth, and the depth that brings your form to the next level.
Yeah, you come out with the different perspective on yourself, but then also others, and hopefully if y'all's forum's been around for a while, and you're very y'all are very sharing. But there's always something, as vulnerable as everybody is. There's usually always something that comes out of those retreats of just unplugging.
Always learn something new.
Yeah,
those exercises that obviously are time tested and designed are meant to do that. So that's why we continue to use a lot of the EO protocols. And exercises.
So, fun question though. What's some advice that you would give your younger self back in Galveston or Egypt or at Wharton School of Business? What would you tell your younger self that would influence you today?
Oh, a couple of things probably. One is I think that there's an opportunity younger for me to be a little bit bolder than I was. I think we could have grown the company quicker had I been a little more. Sometimes discipline is a curse, and it's kept us out of a lot of bad deals.
It's a give and take.
And it's also kept me conservative in underwriting, and ultimately that's the right answer, but I think there's some opportunity for me to be a little more aggressive on some of the things that I did at a younger age. I think the value of kind of the community piece. I'm active in our church now. I'm active in a lot of nonprofits. That was a backseat for me in the first 20 years. And I think the younger self didn't appreciate that there's just as many connections and kind of friendships and business acumen that can come from the nonprofit or the community or the church aspect than the business side. And I kind of, the younger self wasn't ready to appreciate that piece of it. And I guess the last thing is I think that there are opportunities when you're first starting business to cut corners, and maybe on the unethical line. And so I think keeping a strong moral compass is critical. And I don't think I ever kind of shaded on that, but boy, there were opportunities to kind of just do something that really didn't feel right. And I would tell that, especially the guy in Egypt that was sitting on their loan, that, there is value to staying strong, to being the oak, and kind of keeping that true north. Yeah,
good things take time to build, And I like the point about the networking. Our kids are in private schools, and same thing. We just never. I'm starting to see a little bit now. We just haven't really dove into that community because I have, we have lots of different friends groups. We have EO. We have all these other things, and there's value there, right? We see people that's been into school for, 10, 12 years, and there's just value in that community and investing in that. And again, it takes work to be able to build those relationships.
Well, we have, as a perfect illustration of that, my two older boys went to Lamplighter at the private school for the first
great community.
Great community. And from that group, through Indian guides or whatever, those kinds of experience in baseball, my lawyer, my accountant, some long-term friends, and we have a Vegas group, and 5 of them came from that group. So we continue to keep the relationships and connections from awesome. Back in the early days.
Yeah, we were at St. Monica for a while, and those Indian guides, those camp trips were so cool. And then they just started to die off in middle school, and then we switched over to TCA. A lot of folks from Lamplighters go there, and you just see that longevity. So that would be a good piece of advice I give myself. And I told my son that. I was like, look, whenever you get older, get in a good community with school and church and invest in that, and it's gonna pay off just as much in the business world.
Oh, sure. Yes, absolutely.
So what's a fun fact about you? What's the weirdest thing about you?
Oh, I guess if you had Judy out, my wife, there'd be need a longer podcast for that. But I am highly claustrophobic. And so oddly, I scuba dive, even though I'm highly claustrophobic, which is kind of counterintuitive.
Does it take you some time? I don't dive a ton, but when I get in the water, I freak out.
The first 10 minutes, what am I doing breathing underwater?
Well, it's just like people jump in, they're all the way straight down. Like I feel like I can't catch my breath. I think some of it's the oxygen mix, but then it just freaks me out. Yeah, just
you're doing the heavy breathing. You see the meter going down, right?
Yeah. So once you get down, you're blowing bubbles, you're fine.
But so oddly, I can do that. But in multiple instances and haunted houses. I can't do, when the elevator comes down, I can't do those kind of cramped spaces. But when I sleep, I have a pillow underneath me and a pillow on top of my head that forms this little cocoon. So I can't see any light, which you think would make a claustrophobic person kind of crazy, but it works for me because I think I can have my feet and hands free. So it's an odd phenomenon.
Let's just say that's very weird.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's just say,
go.
have you tried an eye mask?
I am not. My son actually uses one of those chilled ones, one of the eye mask. So I think it also kind of takes away, because I was a light sleeper. So I get a little bit of the noise distortion. So the pillow helps me with that. But I put in earplugs too.
Oh,
so
nice.
I'll see if I can graduate away from the pillow.
I'm a weird pillow sleeper too. I have a light pillow under a thin pillow underneath, and then I have a thicker pillow. Like I'm weird.
You got a little stair stepping pillow going on.
Yeah. And so until I found these pillows that you can custom stuff them. So they come with all the stuffing, and you custom stuff it to your exact how you like it.
Probably emanated from somebody like you looking for a new option.
Oh,
right?
it was really good. Somebody referred it to me, so it was really good. Well, good, man. What's something that you'd like our listeners to know about you, about EO, about business? What's some final words that you'd leave us with?
For me, and we didn't dive into this, I'm a big board game, card game, dinner club games, and people will tell you that I have, if you sat down at dinner with me under the placemat, there'd be a series of questions that were, seem frivolous at first, but are highly intentional. So I would like people to kind of take away that if you maintain the curiosity, the intellectual, the personality curiosity, just be thoughtful about wanting to know about who Gabe is.
Yeah.
My gosh, it has been game changing for me to create opportunities both within our forum or in our community or church or just our friends to kind of be that kind of game meister guy that can help unpack that one little thing. And boy, we do it with our kids, and you can see their eyes raise. Here your dad goes again.
I know.
And hopefully they're repeating that same exercise, and they'll see the job. But so I guess stay curious, stay interested in others, and my gosh, laugh at yourself.
Yeah. Don't take life too seriously.
Yeah. I got more than enough people that'll tell me I'm not that important. So
yeah. I love the curiosity piece. And I think a lot of that I've learned from EO, because usually when there's dinner, okay, let's do a one question, and that just opens up the table. I've tried it with our kids, but they're at that age where they're definitely rolling eyes, but you're hoping that everything you're pouring into them will come out.
We do little topic jars. I've done Jeopardy games before where you create categories based on responses. So just something that I think can stimulate the conversation. And I think people would tell me that, there's obviously dinner table books, but mine are personal because I use your answers from questions like that to kind of forge it into a game format. So
that's really cool.
That's fun.
Well, thanks so much for spending some time with us. Looking forward to having you back in the alumni community. We're really excited about that program. Really excited about having some of your forum mates. So spread the word for us on that. And remember, we're trying to get to 40 members in 30 days. Probably going to have to extend that a little bit. So, but we're trying to
get it done. Thanks for your initiative on that.
We will get to that number. So thanks a lot for spending some time with us. As always, guys, take some time, take a breath, and really look back where you came from, because that's really the only way that you can move forward with a full heart of gratitude. So thanks so much for spending some time with us, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.